House Veterans and Military Affairs will come to order, and want to call up and, first of all, thank everyone for their participation today, as well as staff, and want to call up Senate Bill 292. And if we could get, I guess it's a bill brief from the reviser, would be great. Thank you.
Senate Bill 292 is an act concerning veterans and military. It updates certain provisions related to the Kansas Army and Air National Guard. It also provides for the appointment of a state judge advocate. It increases the monthly disability and death benefits for Kansas Army and Air National Guards people, and provides for the adjustment of such disability and death benefits.
Thank you. Could we have a little bit of a history? Is this Senate Bill 292, is it a couple of bills combined into one?
It is not two bills combined into one. The Senate version, all that happened on the Senate side is the change from 2024 to 2025 in new Section 2. And in Section 5, the SUP year was updated. And in Section 21, the SUP year was updated. On the House side, on Section 13, on page 8, when it went to committee, they updated it to include lawful before orders on line 31. And on Section 19, amended on page 11, line 38, to include naval, air, or space component of any of the several states and territories, Puerto Rico, or the District of Columbia, and the last two sections remain the same.
And what page and line numbers were those you just said?
The chart is right.
We have a chart. Thank you.
So that would be in the House version column. Section 13 on page 8, line 31. Section 19 on page 11, line 38.
I think that the Senate has discussed and has the Senate seen the House version before? Okay, so these are new changes. And does this include, I think that's our other bill that came out of the Senate. And so Senate Bill 292 passed the Senate 40-0, and none of that has been changed except for the few that you have said, Section 1, oh, excuse me, Section 13 and 19. Okay, thank you. Committee, any questions for the reviser? Thank you. I'm going to pause for just a moment. We have conferred on the Senate side here, and uh, the Senate agrees with the changes proposed and put into the bill by the House in Senate Bill 292 as it is today. Now, I want to, before we leave 292, want to ask the chair a couple of questions. If I may, if we can go offline for just a moment.
Madam Chairman, I would like to ask to have 2567 placed into Senate Bill 292.
And 2567 is what, please? If, and that's an acronym for something probably, but
It is to have a recruiting element to get people to get a master's degree for re-upping into the National Guard.
I think I would like the reviser to give us a bill brief, please, on, you said 2567?
Yes.
House Bill 2567 establishes the Kansas National Guard Educational Masters for Enhanced Readiness and Global Excellence, also known as EMERGE program, and the Kansas National Guard Educational Masters for Enhanced Readiness and Global Excellence Program Repayment Fund.
And could you give us the qualifications that one has to have to be able to participate in the program? Yes, copies of the bill would be helpful. Thank you.
So this starts in section 5, bottom of page 2, going into page 3. I'm starting on line 2. In order to qualify for participation in the Kansas National Guard Emerge program, the eligible National Guard member must agree in writing to complete such member's current service obligation in the Kansas National Guard and serve actively in good standing for not less than 48 months upon completion of the last semester for which the member receives assistance under the Emerge program. Prior to becoming eligible for participation in Emerge, each eligible Guard member shall submit the free application for federal student aid and apply for any other federal tuition assistance that such member may be eligible to receive. To maintain eligibility for participation in the program, they must remain in good standing at a Kansas educational institution where such member is enrolled, make continuing satisfactory progress towards completion, and maintain a grade point average of not less than 2.75 and maintain satisfactory participation in the Kansas National Guard. And those are the eligibility requirements.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Madam Chair. So the Emerge bill had a number of sponsors, around 40, as you guys can see at the top of the bill. It was bipartisan and it passed the House 114-5. Really, what we are looking at doing here is placing this within Senate Bill 292 because we felt like this was very applicable to the National Guard in the underlying bill that we are considering pertaining to the National Guard. And this bill is set to try to increase our recruitment and retention within the National Guard. So last week was Military Appreciation Day here at the Capitol. There was a recruiter that actually ended up talking to some staff and some other members. He's an Army National Guard recruiter and indicated that, this is going to be a big deal. Because not only are we going to be able to use this while we go out and recruit younger individuals now moving forward, but it also makes it to where we have it to where there's an additional 4-year commitment onto folks' service. It's 100 slots in the first year, and by the end of the second year, there's going to be 200 slots, and that's where it's capped. And this is a force development tool for the Adjutant General to use so that as he looks at mid-level career individuals who are going to either ascend into command at some point in the future, they can start getting this under their belts because right now in the military, it is strongly recommended, which means basically if you want to compete and you want to actually hold the position of commander, the strongly recommended basically means you need to have your master's degree. And so this is starting to get it to where people get additional years of service, but also we start using it as a force development tool in order to allow for them to progress within their careers within the Army and Air National Guard as well. I'll answer any questions you folks have on this or my background within the National Guard that I can help fill in any blanks.
Thank you. And before we proceed, wanted to thank you, Representative Carpenter, for your service. And we also have some other military members here in the audience in the committee meeting room here today. So I want to thank you all for your service as well. Just a question for the reviser, actually, just the history of the bill on the Senate side, if we could.
On the Senate side, it was after passing out of the House, it was received on February 28th. It was then referred to the Committee on Education on February 29th. And then they had a hearing on Tuesday, March 12th, 2024.
And Representative Carpenter, did you testify in the Senate side of things?
Yes, ma'am. So I was one of the proponents that testified. We also had another number of other proponents who are representatives as well. We had Representative Turk testify. We had Representative Proctor testify. We had the National Guard testify as well. Their legislative liaison. We had the Kansas Board of Regents testify in favor. And there may have been some other written proponent testimony as well.
Thank you. For the reviser or for Representative Carpenter, is there a fiscal note?
Yes, Madam Chair. So the fiscal note was derived by KBOR, the Kansas Board of Regents. For the first year, they projected the cost of being $1.1 million in year one. And then by year two, it's $2.2 million. Because the reason why you see the fluctuation there is because in the first year, it's only 100 slots if they're all filled. And then in the second year, it's 200 slots. And then that is where it caps out in perpetuity moving forward, unless we were to pass legislation increasing or lowering those number of slots. So roughly in the out years, you're looking at around 2.2 or relatively small increases for the 200 slots as we move forward in those out years.
I feel like we're having a committee hearing right now since with all these questions. So if it's capped at 100 participants in the first year at 1.1 million, it's 110,000 per participant. I've done, no, that's 10, it's 11,000. Sorry. No, that's 11,000. No, it's 1,100. It's 1,100 if I have my zeros lined up correctly, right? 1,100. There we go. 1,100. Okay. If I have all the zeros lined up, but so 1,100 for each service member. Are there any questions for the revisor? Double checking my math here. It's 11,000 per service member, per National Guard member, 11,000. And do we know how much a master's degree costs in Kansas? And are these for Kansas master's programs? You would have to go to school here in Kansas?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
So this is for Kansas institutions. It's also for independent colleges as well. So if somebody, so they'd have to attend here in the state of Kansas in order to get this benefit. If they decided they wanted to go and attend a university in Texas, this benefit would not apply. And so they have to get them here in the state of Kansas at our institutions.
Is there a requirement if they either leave the service or they don't complete their master's degree, they have to pay it back?
Yes, there is that requirement in the legislation.
And are there collection enforcement measures in the bill as well? For the state to collect that?
I will refer to the revisor, but based on what I have here in the bill, that's my understanding is that they have to pay it back because it is not just they get a walk away and they don't have to pay it back.
But we don't have any, or do we? I'll ask the revisor. Do we have some enforcement mechanism to collect on that?
By the language of the bill, there is at the bottom of page 3, it explains what would happen upon the failure of an eligible Guard member. But I do not see any language of an enforcement mechanism. But I will continue to look, and I'll raise my hand if I see anything.
Is it a one-time $11,000 or is it 11 per year of their master's program?
No, so if you look at the bottom of page 3, it tells you how to determine how much that individual would owe. So if they ended up, for some reason, something happened after their third year commitment, they would only owe a year left of what their commitment was for repayment. So all the calculations and how it's going to be determined is here at the bottom of page 3.
I'm sorry, I wasn't clear in my question. So you're in the National Guard, you are applying to participate in this program, and you are successful getting into the program, and you are successfully and have completed your master's. So if the program works as it's written in the bill, does the service member get $11,000 per year towards their master's degree? Or is it a one-time lump sum of $11,000?
So basically, with how the bill is written, is that the National Guard member is not the one receiving the money. It's the Adjutant General's office working with the Kansas Board of Regents to say, hey, Kansas Board of Regents says, hey, we have a military member here who's in this program, and they're working with the Adjutant General's office to do that funding.
So is the funding a one-time lump sum payment of $11,000 to the Adjutant General, or it's $11,000 to the Adjutant General each year you're in the master's program? Because I'm assuming a master's program takes more than 1 year, but for this kind of master's, yes, for the revisor.
on page 2, line 3 in section 3, it says the State Board of Regents shall administer the National Guard Emerge program. And if you go down to line 6, establish a mechanism to ensure distribution of funds for tuition and fee reimbursement to Kansas educational institutions. So that decision will be made upon implementation of the program and how to disperse the funds.
So I'm still not clear. Is it is the total for that master's degree that that person is enrolled in, is it a one-time, is it a maximum benefit of $11,000, or is it $11,000 per year, or we don't know?
So the thing is let's say that it depends on the institution, depends on where they go. The numbers that were provided by the Kansas Board of Regents was their estimate on how much this program is going to cost. So if I go to
Total $11,000 to get a master's degree.
Yeah. So if somebody goes to KU and the master's degree that they're seeking at KU is more expensive than the one that someone's seeking at Pittsburgh State, then there could be some fluctuation in how much the cost is going to be per class. But it's up to the Board of Regents to work with the Adjutant General's office to determine
among the up to 100 participating, with a cap of $1.1 million to be spent and allocated by the Adjutant General and the State Board of Regents.
As of right now, the fiscal note is projected to be $1.1 million, and we would have to appropriate those funds in order to fund this program.
Thank you. That helps answer the question. So I've asked a lot of questions. Do we have any other questions from our side of the table? I don't think so. So, well, let us confer for a moment, if we may. The Senate has considered the House offer and sees that this is a program that could help with recruitment efforts for our Kansas National Guard, as well as, you get an education degree, and though things may change, your education is something you always have um, with you. It does have a fiscal note with it, which I've heard a statement that that's the fiscal note for now. And um, I would think that the fiscal note wouldn't change much. Um, and it is limited for now to a limited number of National Guard folks. Do we know how many National Guard engage in master's degrees in a year?
Okay, so based on the numbers that I was given by the National Guard because I asked how many people would be eligible for this. Well, first, there's 6,600 National Guardsmen. Now, this program is not meant to target somebody who's an E1, E3, just beginning, or an O1 who are just beginning in their careers. This is for mid-level individuals who are either going to go up into command or they're going to also go up into higher levels of the echelon within the enlisted side. So this is going to focus on those who are E6s, 7s, 8s, what have you, as they go into command. On the officer side, it's going to focus on those that are later in their O2 and O3 O3 ranks, so that when they get to major or lieutenant colonel, they could use this to help themselves. Based on the projections of the ones that are within those targeted fields of people we could choose from, with both the Army and Air National Guard, it's about 1,200 people who could potentially be selected if they apply for this program. So with that being said, if we do this program for the next several years and I don't think all 1,200 people will do it, but it'll knock out a good chunk to where at some point this program will start leveling off and actually going down because we're not going to have that many people who are coming in to be able to be eligible for it. This is how I potentially foresee this at some point in the future.
Thank you for answering the questions and for our revisers for providing some answers as well. And I think Senator Wilborn has a question.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This hasn't been heard on our side. We are going against a committee chair, so it puts us at somewhat of a collegial disadvantage. I just want to make that statement. We are stepping out here, little political risk. I think you need to know that. I want to make that statement.
If I may follow up, well, I sincerely appreciate you guys stepping out and doing this. I think that it is a very valuable piece of legislation that will have a direct impact on our National Guardsmen and women. And I think that by doing this here today, you guys are showing a massive amount of support for those individuals.
Well, we haven't agreed yet, but
I was hoping to get you closer to it.
Carry the lift there. Do you know what some of the concerns were during the hearing?
Actually, the hearing was very interesting because what ended up happening was instead of talking about the bill, senators seemed, or at least a senator seemed more interested in talking about my retirement and somehow double dipping, and it has nothing to do with this legislation. And they didn't understand how the military retirement works with legislative retirement. So it was an interesting hearing that seemed to not focus necessarily on all the aspects of the bill. And I think other politics were, for some reason, at play during that time.
Yes, Senator Wilborn has a comment.
Madam Chair, if I may, friendly suggestion. Could we pass over this offer, proceed with the rest of the bit, and we will then summarize?
Yes, I think that's a good idea. So let's halt discussion on 292 and see. I think we have another. Do we have a House bill in conference as well? No, I think 2392. I think I have your sheet. Nope. Okay. That's a House bill, so you would have to, I guess, open up the conference on that. And the reviser has a comment. Yes, please. Need a microphone.
Okay. House Bill 2392 updates the Kansas Code of Military Justice. The bill would consolidate language of various provisions. It would repeal those sections which has been consolidated or otherwise removed. It would update language remaining sections, and it would comply with the Uniform Code of Military Justice, the modernized statutory phrasing.